Welcome to the Slipstream F1 Championship Series, as right now we're on board with Brakey, who is putting on a very quick lap time on the mediums. We have a new guy on top of the board for the moment, but it might be taken away here as Brakey across the line, only up to second place, as Matthew Dyer showing up as a one-time driver this season, signed with Renault just a couple of days ago, and so now Renault has a driver here. But this is, like I said, just a one-timer until Matthew Dyer can get his schedule figured out, and then later on in the season he plans to be racing the rest of the season. My name is Sam, and I've got Anthony with me. And Anthony, we watched practice at the start. It was raining at the start. It has cooled down. The rains are gone. These guys are on softs and mediums. Is there anything that's really surprising you so far?
A couple of drivers went out early, which is something that I think we were to expect. A lot of drivers were having problems in the rain. They couldn't find any traction. A lot of them were on inters. I think all of them were on the intermediate tires. Bronson Stafford, notably, he tried to make a run through Campsa and completely overdrove the turn and then nailed the wall, unfortunately taking him out. Trenton Jump also had a similar issue where he overdrove a turn and then ran into the wall. Both of those drivers did not really put down any sort of laps that we could see go towards the race. Trenton Jump put down one lap. Bronson Stafford never even put down a lap, so we don't know how fast that AlphaTauri is, but we should see that Alpha shine later on after qualifying. Anything you want to touch on? This has been a pretty interesting practice session.
It's been a really great practice session so far. Frozen is still out on track, though. Has been out there for 12 laps on those softs, and just cruising around. I think he might have ran out of fuel possibly, or now he's trying to just see how far those tires can go. Has now 13 laps on those tires as Matthew Dyer back on track, trying to best his time on the softs. These drivers are going to be having a very interesting race here today. We've been seeing AlphaTauri of Bronson Stafford has 3 wins this season, has won every single race, dominant every single race. And the real question is, when will we see a different driver come in and compete? And I think Matthew Dyer might be that, as Frozen is now retired from the session, waiting for qualifying to start here in the next couple of seconds. But this Renault team, I think they picked up a pretty good driver, as he is on top of the board first and trying to put down an even faster time, as he is already smoking the rest of the field.
Yeah, he came on track. He came into the session late. There were some connection issues. Then he came in, ran one out lap. Second lap, purpled every single sector, and then had almost an entire second over, I believe at the time was JD. Ever since then, he has been able to better his time slightly, and Brakey came out and ran a really fast lap at 118.9. Barcelona has been known as one of those tracks where they're kind of everyone does their testing here for the off season, so everyone has so much data. These drivers don't have that kind of data. They basically just have the short 30-minute practice session we have before they actually go into the race. So this race is going to really show who's able to stand with the front of the field. Barcelona is a really technical track. There's not really a whole lot of passing zones here, except for down at the first corner, and obviously the chicane at the end of the lap. Also, the first turn after Campsa. So we're going to see who's got the speed to carry on through this race, as it's a really flowy circuit, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it is going to be very quick. 2 really good passing zones, like you said. Qualifying is going to be the same that it's been all season long, different from most qualifying. It's the 1-lap qualifying, where all the drivers will be running 1 lap all by themselves at the same time. So we're not going to be able to really see ghosting-wise where cars are running, but you will see on our telemetry there on the left of where cars are running. We'll be trying to stick on board with the car that's up front, but this is going to be a fun one to watch, as these drivers are getting set and ready for some fun racing action. As Bronson Stafford going to try to go 4 for 4 this season. Top of the board for practice is going to be Matthew Dyer, and then you've got Brakey, JD, and then you've got Johnson We're expecting to see, possibly another battle between the Haas and Red Bull machines here today. But Spencer Hardison, last week, we saw he was all on his lonesome, really, between all the other drivers. We'll see if he can possibly be running with other drivers or if he'll be pulling away from the rest of the field as practice time is over. It's time for qualifying.
We're going to expect to see some very fast laps in this qualifying session. These cars, when they get underweighted and they start to really shine with the highest engine mode that we have here, the track is also clear. It's a nice clear day for qualifying. We're going to see some really fast laps.
Now, Anthony, I think we talked about this last week a little bit, but a lot of drivers, it's kind of a hit or miss for this track of them feeling the most comfortable. And I believe I was talking with Matt Dyer, that's my brother out there. So I've been talking to him about this race, and he says he really enjoys Spain. And a lot of other drivers, I think half the field enjoys Spain. The other half, it's kind of a tougher track for other machines. So we'll see where people lay and how they feel about this course as we are green for qualifying.
It's a really love-hate relationship with this track. Right now, Tanner Johnson holds the fastest lap. We'll see what happens at the end of turn 2. Still, Tanner Johnson. Nope, Matt Dyer leapfrogs up into first place. Out of turn 3, it's still going to be Matt Dyer.
And we're looking at the tires as well. Bronson, Stafford, as well as, I believe that's Frozen. Those are the two machines that are rocking and rolling in the medium tires. Everyone else on the softs. So we'll see once formation laps start where the tire strategy is going to come in, as Frozen out of this qualifying instantly going to be starting the back of the pack, but up front it's between Brinky and Matt Dyer, and we'll see if Tanner Johnson can get up there. Trent Jump, excuse me, and we'll see if Jump can jump ahead as Brinky drops down into 4th place right now in qualifying. Matt Dyer up front.
Oh, Bronson has now shown himself into the front. He was up in the lead for a split second, but now he's up there again. Stafford in front, Dyer and Reiki kind of swapping positions. Looks like that maybe Bronson Stafford's better in Sector 3 than all these other drivers. Coming down the line, it's going to be really close at the finish.
Matthew Dyer passing everyone out of the final corner, crossing the line. Matthew Dyer, Breaky, Trent Jump, Bronson Stafford, as well as Spencer Hardison, Johnson, JD, and then Frozen at the end of the line. That was, you thought maybe Bronson had that, and then it just dropped coming out of that final corner. Could not get to the pedal fast enough, as the cars on the softer compound it'll get going way quicker than the mediums.
I mean, if you look at your top 4 times, look how close it really was at the very end of the run. Obviously, Bronson was on medium tires, so I mean, that just shows you maybe the AlphaTauri has the overall pace over everyone else when we switched tires, but it didn't really seem like the tire compounds really mattered too much. The softs and mediums seem to be on the same level of grip as, which is kind of something you not really expect, but maybe with the recent reseal of the track, maybe that's kind of what's playing out with these tire compounds.
Yeah, it kind of shows that Bronson still has the fastest car out there and has another chance to go for this season. But something to watch out for. During practice, at the start, it was raining slightly where the drivers had to be on the intermediates. We'll see if rain becomes a possibility here at Spain, as it's one of those hit or miss tracks where sometimes it's a full rain course. Other times, half the race, you'll see rain. So Spain is always known for having some type of weather change. We'll see if that continues here today or if we see a completely dry weathers for these drivers. But Anthony, the drivers are getting set to go. Are you ready for this long race here today at Spain?
I'm ready as always. 66 laps here today at the Circuit de Catalunya. We are going to be running the full distance. Again, a 2-hour time limit for these drivers, as with every Formula One race. 16 turns make up the Catalunya circuit. And the most notable turns that we're going to see on this track, again, we got to watch out for turn 1 at the very beginning of the lap. A quick right-left chicane, which is very fast. You can take it at a lot of speed. One of the faster chicanes we have on the entire calendar this year. Up through to turn 4, another passing zone potentially if you're able to suck up to the guy in front of you. Now, with these Formula One cars, especially with the higher downforce and the more intricate front wings, dirty air is going to play a factor, so we should see some drivers push up the track in turn 3 rather than being able to get close. DRS zones are on the front straight and the back straight after Campsa. Sam, what are you looking forward in this race? Do you think it's going to be, flat out all the way to the end, or do you think we're going to see a mix of strategies?
It's going to be a mix of strategies for these drivers. We just saw in that graphic of what the tire compounds are going to look like. It's looking like it's going to be a two-stopper for most of these drivers, and for the drivers on softs, they're probably going to switch to a medium on their first stop, and then possibly a medium to finish off the race, or even to a harder compound to finish it off. I'm interested to see what Bronson's going to do. He's doing the same thing that he's done every single week. He might not have the fastest car during the start of the race, but by the end he'll have the fastest car and have the best strategy that is different from what everyone else is doing. I'm nervous for the Ferraris. They got the podiums last week. Both drivers have 2 podium finishes, and they're pretty close on points wise, but they have both struggled on hitting the mark to have the same strategy that is going to battle and beat that AlphaTauri, and I'm nervous that they will miss out again here today, as they need to find the consistency to stay with Bronson Stafford.
All right, one of them is starting towards the back in 7th place. JD did not have a very good qualifying lap at all. He'll be starting at the back for that.
And that he will. Bronson will be starting 4th, Brakey 2nd, and the newcomer of Matthew Dyer leading the pack as we are getting into the grid. And, we'll see if the Renault team can be somewhat different. We've got new blood in here. We'll see if they can try to steal a win away from Bronson Stafford and the AlphaTauri team. Another thing to watch out for, constructors, we're tied at 91 points apiece for AlphaTauri and Ferrari. Anthony, the start is yours.
We're looking for the lights. Everyone's on the grid. As soon as we get 5 red lights and they go out, we will start the Spanish Grand Prix. Lights are out. Here we go down the front stretch. It's a long run down to turn 1 of the longer runs we had this season. The Ferrari of Brakey got a huge jump over Matthew Dyer. He's going to go into 2nd, and now the Alfa Romeo is looking for it, but whoa, and lock up by the Renault down into turn 1. A couple of drivers have missed the chicane completely. That's a Red Bull and I believe one of the Haas drivers. Everyone's circling around turn 3, going down into turn 4. The Renault of Matthew Dyer is right there. JD, one of the Ferraris have fallen out. So I think maybe that's an internet issue or something, but one of the Ferrari drivers has gone out into turn number 5 for the first time. Everyone looks like they've gotten out okay.
As an Alfa Romeo going to be spinning around. That's Trenton Jump, as he'll be dropping all the way back to last place. Brakey leading the charge, as well as Matthew Dyer following suit. I'm re-looking. I think JD might still be in the game. I think that might have been some type of glitch that popped up, as yellow in sector 2 still going on there, as Jump finally gets his car going. That Alfa Romeo team is still slick, because the tires are still slick out there for that machine. He's going to continue to try to get himself straightened out. But right now, Brakey and Dyer both trying to pull away as fast as possible, because if they need to just keep on going, as Bronson Stafford is still nipping at their heels.
That heartbreak for the Alfa Romeo team. They had one of the fastest cars on the grid today, and bad luck. He's now 22 seconds behind these leaders. And wow, JD with the fastest lap so far. So that was definitely interesting. I think he might still be in the session, like you said. Oh, it looks like Matthew Dyer had to go. He's trying to have another go at the Ferrari into turn 3. It looks like he's going to try and set himself up for turn 4. He's been able to keep it down to the right side, to the inside of the Ferrari into turn number 4. He's going to hold it. New leader, Matthew Dyer.
Matthew Dyer and the Renault team just got on board, and now it's taken off. As you're seeing, our telemetry is kind of freaking out at the moment, but up front, it is Matthew Dyer and Brakey leading the charge. The Renault team finally being up front. We'll see if we can lead a lap here, as they are excited to see the new blood finally doing something for these drivers as they continue to push forward. Bronson Stafford, though, he is still up front, running well, but he's about 1.5 seconds back from our front 2.
Indeed he is, and he's actually falling back a little bit. He's kind of stayed consistently within 2 seconds, but we have to remember he's on a different tire compound. He's on the medium tires. These two are on softs, so that just shows you how much speed that AlphaTauri has. And in light of everything that we're seeing with tire strategy, he might be trying to go for the same strategy he tried at Bahrain, which is medium, soft to the end, and he laid down some fast laps at the end. He's actually kind of reeling in the Ferrari of Braky down the front straight. I believe he's not gonna have DRS. No, does not have it yet. We are on lap 3, so DRS has enabled this lap. So far, the top 3 are kind of scampering away. JD, I think, has rejoined the session. That Ferrari is a fast Ferrari. He's still running in 4th place. And back here in 5th place, you have Spencer Hardison, who's keeping up with these two. He kind of runs wide a little bit. He almost went off the track. And then the two Haas drivers, Tanner and Frozen, staying right with each other. And the Alfa Romeo of Trenton Jump, who is, again, 23 seconds behind Frozen and Nerda. So, long way to go for that. He's just now going to turn 1.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by the fact that we're seeing these drivers running up front. I mean, it's great to see Matthew Dyer running so well, but Braky, this has to be demoralizing in a way, as he would be leading this pack right now if Matthew Dyer wasn't here, and he'd be trying to pull away from Bronson Stafford. But right now, Bronson just laid down the purple sector 2.
Right, he's trying his best. He's doing a really good job down into this chicane section. Bronson, he's on attack mode for sure. He's going to be within DRS range of Braky, and as he's going down the front stretch, I wouldn't be surprised if that AlphaTauri tries a dive bomb move if he's close enough. DRS enabled on the AlphaTauri down the front straightaway. I don't think he's going to be close enough to make a move. We should see. He's going to maybe try it. No, too far back. Still, the position is the same.
As we're also watching for the battle in the back, Spencer Hardison has just been dropping back like a rock, as right now he's running 6th, was up in 4th place at a moment, but it now is all the way down to 6th place, about to lose it and go down to 7, if Frozen can keep up the pace that he's going in.
Frozen's had a really good run. We've seen him have some, promising, oh, one of the Ferraris just hit the wall. That was JD.
JD having issues early in this race on lap number 4, the Ferrari losing. Luckily still alive and able to keep on moving, but that Ferrari, huge contact, which is going to get Frozen in that position, as well as Spencer Hardison going to get by. JD now down to 7th place. And you hate to see that for the Ferrari team that we're hoping to jump in some fashion, the constructors team. And as long as you don't see Bronson get a win here, they should be able to pass for constructors, but that is not the way that JD wanted this race to go.
Not at all, and his teammate's not doing much better because he's got a whole gearbox full of that AlphaTauri down the front straight. They're probably going to have DRS.
Gets halfway into the dirt, and that's going to give Bronson Stafford 2nd place. Now he's going to be trying to charge at the Renault, who has over a 3-second lead, but with the DRS that he was gifted, now able to gain a little bit of time there on Matthew Dyer.
Yeah, Matthew Dyer's been able to run the table at the front. He's not had to deal with anything, but Braky is still there. He's not giving up. He's now within a second, but that run into the gravel is not going to be very good for him. Some tire wear is definitely going to be a factor. Man, what an interesting couple of laps. We're only on lap 5.
And Frozen losing the position to Spencer Hardison again, and now going to be trying to gain that time back as the DRS zone helped out the Red Bull machine, but Haas is not letting it go for that position of 5th place.
No, he's not. He's holding it strong as Frozen's trying to find a way. He's arcing into turn 5, now on the way to turn 6 and 7. Looks like it's going to get around on the outside and give the position back to Frozen. Looks like that the Red Bull almost overdrove to turn up through. It looks like it's going to be Haas pulling away. I think that maybe Spencer has DRS, and if he did, he's not using it. But he's actually on the DRS.
He could try to get onto the DRS, but also got into the gravel, so he lost a lot of time and momentum, so he was not able to gain anything on the Haas drivers in front of him. Moving back up front, Bronson Stafford has been trying to gain time, and he is doing a fantastic job at it, as it is now less than 2 seconds up between himself and Renault.
Yeah, Matthew Dyer is now being ran down, and it just amazes me how fast this AlphaTauri is, even though they're on technically the slower compound. Now that might change. Maybe the medium compound is the faster compound around here. We'll have to wait later on in the race. The lap times aren't being eaten away at a huge pace. They're still kind of staying within that 1 to 2 second range, and it just seems like Bronson is able to get into the turns better than Matthew Dyer's at the moment, but there's still a long way to go, and the gap's not closing very fast.
No, it's not. It's just slowly being chipped away every lap. I mean, we're only on lap 6 of 66. As the leaders, once they cross the line, will have 60 laps to go for these drivers, and still a lot of strategy to be utilized, and a lot of mental, fortitude needs to be utilized here as these drivers. It's a long one. I mean, yes, track time, it should only be about an hour and 30 minutes, but 66 laps around here in Spain, it is a long race. You got to stay focused at almost every single corner.
Yeah, it's a really demanding track. It's not one of the easier ones on the calendar, and it requires a lot of mental fortitude. And right now we're looking at the relative, and I was just noticing that Spencer Hardinson has lost another position to a Haas driver as Frozen was able to pass him earlier, and now he's losing ground to the 2 Haas drivers, and it looks like the Frozen might be catching up to his teammate Tanner Johnson. I have to keep an eye on the Red Bull throughout this race, as he has not seemed to really get a grip on this track, and Trenton Jump is making up time on that Red Bull, and you got to feel bad again for the Alfa Romeo team, as he's way at the back of the pack, not having the race that he was hoping for.
No, not at all. That is be Jump all the way back in 7th place. The car that is struggling even more. But up front, that gap is almost less than a second as AlphaTauri of Bronson Stafford is coming quick on the back bumper of Matthew Dyer. And Dyer's been trying a lot of things here, but you know that those tires are going to fade away after about 5 laps, and that's what we've been seeing for these past 2 laps. That AlphaTauri is charging way quicker than he was before.
Yeah, he is. Those medium tires are going to last so much longer than the soft start. We didn't even see in practice they weren't lasting very long, and he's going to be within DRS range. He might have it and have a go at him, or at least close the gap. He is on the DRS. We'll have to see. He put down a purple sector 3, but as you see, Matthew Dyer weaving down to the inside of the track, trying to break the wake. Now Bronson is right on the rear end of the car through turns 1 and 2. Into 3, we could see a new leader by the end of this lap.
Yeah, we really could, as Matthew Dyer is over. When he entered turn number 1, he was off rhythm, and it just continued forward onto turn number 3.
And now it's even worse for that car, as now he's got Bronson Stafford all over his gearbox down into turn 5. Smokes it up into 5. It's a downhill, slightly banked turn through turn 6. Now we're really going to see this up into camp, so who can get the better run out? If Bronson can stay right with him with the DRS, we might see a run down into the tight turn. This is a braking zone on this track. Let's see if he has a go at him. No, he thinks better of it.
Did hit the DRS, and it's going to be, I believe that's Tanner Johnson's going to be hit with a 3-second penalty, a first penalty of the day, as that was too many warnings being not listened to, so it's probably overextension and corner cutting for that Haas machine. As up front, it's still wheel to wheel, as we're seeing Matthew Dyer trying to hold off AlphaTauri team, but you know Bronson's going to have the DRS zone here, and he's got the pace. As Matthew Dyer trying to bob and weave, but he's just going to get the position and let Bronson Stafford go.
I think he was going to try and run a defensive line, but he was definitely going to have all that run down into turn 1. New leader is going to be AlphaTauri with Bronson Stafford, and Matthew Dyer is still not going away, though. He's on the charge, but I don't think that those tires are able to keep up with the pace of the freshly worn in mediums, and now it's going to be Bronson Stafford pulling away, but that might not be forever, as we still have some pit stops to go, and once he gets onto those soft tires, we might see a shift in momentum.
Yeah, I mean, Bronson's going to have to switch to, most likely, since he's on the mediums to start this thing off, he might be going for the 1-stopper here, while everyone else will be going for 2 stops if you're starting off on the soft tires. That is something to watch out for, and I believe with the soft tires, their strategy is going to be soft, medium, medium, while Bronson as well as Frozen are going to be going with the medium to hard compounds, or they could be going with the medium to soft to finish out this race.
JD is on the hard tire. Of course, he had that spin, so he is going to be on a very off strategy than everyone else, and maybe has the intent to take those hard tires all the way to the end, and that might work out for him in a way. It's going to save, if he doesn't have to pit again, he might save himself up to 40 seconds, which could get him in a very high position by the end of this race. And it all depends on if he can be competitive with those worn hard tires. Of course, we still have the threat of rain. We don't know if it's going to be a rained out race. The clouds are certainly here. It's not at all a sunny day, and as we saw in practice, it went from raining to almost sunshine by the end of the session, and it could go from cloudy to a downpour by the end of this one.
It really could. The change of this track is very bipolar in some fashion, so it is always possible. We're going to do a quick rundown, though, of the drivers and where they stand in points, because the point standings, it doesn't look close between first and second, but everywhere else it's pretty close, and anyone can be making some moves, as Bronson Stafford leading the way, as he's our three-time winner, has won every single race so far this season, has 77 points. Second in place in points is a driver that's in third place on the track. That's Brakey. Logan Brakey is for the Ferrari team, has 46 points, and the gap just keeps on growing the more that Bronson wins. Third in points is actually JD, who's having an awful day today, was 1 point behind his teammate of 45 points for himself. And then we have Evan Coleman for Racing Point, who did not show up for today's race. He'll be losing out on points. Frozen is in fifth in points, and he is looking to have a great day today. Fifth right now on track.
Yeah, and he's been trying to close in on his teammate, but his teammate seems to be pulling away slightly. And you know, a lot of these drivers who are in the middle of the pack as far as points go, they have a lot to gain from having a good day today. And as you said, Frozen is one of them. Spencer Hardinson, even though he's had some bad luck in this race, he's another one of those drivers who can benefit today from a good points day. He came into the season a race late. He's effectively had one race shorter than everyone else because he came in to fill in the Red Bull spot the second race of the season at Bahrain. Ever since then, he's been a fairly consistent driver, and today he's being consistent. He just needs to put down some better laps, and you know, and I think if he can find a rhythm, he could go up and challenge those Haas drivers for a fourth or fifth position, and just have to see how this race goes. The constructors' points, on the other hand, Ferrari and AlphaTauri come into this race dead even at 91 points, and at the rate it's going, because one of the AlphaTauri drivers are not in this race, that being Hazardous, not in this race today. There's only one Alpha on the field at the moment, and that could mean that Ferrari, even though that one of their drivers is having a rough day, those points that JD would get might be enough to get Ferrari into the lead.
You would think that, but here's the thing. Even at Bahrain, Shane, otherwise known as Hazardous, didn't show up then. And due to that, we thought that Ferrari was going to steal the points and get the points lead. But even with them finishing third and fourth, they still didn't take the points lead. They were still behind by 1 point. So it is still possible, even though Hazardous isn't here for the AlphaTauri team. If Bronson Stafford gets the fastest lap as well as the win, he might keep that constructor's lead for AlphaTauri and also the lead for points.
Brakey has spun. Brakey spun out of turn 4.
More issues for Ferrari. We were just talking about how they needed a good day. Continues to have issues as JD them, and now it's Brakey here on lap number 12.
Nah, man, that's going to be a horrible thing. Those tires are probably going to be cooked. We're getting towards the end of their cycle to begin with, and now we see that car trying to find grip, struggling through that quick chicane, and now up through one of the fastest turns on the track. That Ferrari is not looking very healthy, and it's actually reeled in the Haas drivers of Tanner Johnson and Rosa DeNerda. This Ferrari team is on life support this race, it seems.
JD last on the track, back in 8th place. Brakey, though, I'm looking and seeing. I don't think he hit anything, as the winglets are still there for the Ferrari team. It's just the fact that his back tires are just flaming hot, and they are going to be an issue as he pulls into the pits.
Another one.
Matthew Dyer.
Another one, yeah, I was about to say, another one that was in the pits was Matthew Dyer. He's gone onto the medium tire, so the first regularly scheduled pit stop was technically Matthew Dyer, but now him and Brakey are going to be on the same strategy, which is heartbreaking for Brakey. But as Matt Dyer comes out the track, he's got to contend with the Haas, who now finds himself in a podium position. This is a great day for Haas as they find themselves third and fourth in this race.
Yeah, but they're going to have to think about pitting here in the next couple of laps. Now Matthew Dyer is going to be on 12-lap fresher tires than Bronson Stafford. Also 23 seconds back. Matthew Dyer at this point, all that he needs to do is gain to make sure that he's got at least, he's within 20 to maybe 15 seconds on Bronson Stafford, and they'll be taking the lead back.
Yeah, and he might be trying to try an alternative strategy. We saw on our strategy for some of these drivers that they were going to go soft, soft, medium, or medium, soft, soft. But a lot of these drivers, soft, medium, soft was not one of the things that I saw very often. He's just put down a purple sector. So it does, I think it does stand to reason that the medium tire might be the fastest tire here.
Yeah, and I believe the strat that Dyer is going to be going for is soft, medium, medium to finish out this race. But they got to make sure you stay on the course and don't make any mistakes, as we've already seen mistakes made for the Ferrari team that are in the back, 7th and 8th. We formerly have seen them up front, either 3rd and 4th, or even like last week when they were 2nd and 3rd. And, you know, the consistency for the Ferrari team not doing too well here at Spain, as they're probably already thinking, how do we rebound from this?
Yeah, well, you don't expect to have this issue, and when you go into these races, it's never your intention to have a bad day. And we saw both of these drivers spin in the almost the exact same part of the track. It's out of turn 4. You have to put power down in order to get a good run, because it opens up after you brake hard for it. It kind of sweeps out to the left, and you try to put power down, and you end up running off the track. That's exactly what we saw JD do. That's exactly what we saw Brakey do. So both of these Ferraris going off in the same part. And now, like you said, the question is, how do we get back from this? As Trenton Jump has actually just passed Spencer Hardison on the racetrack. That's a really fast Alfa Romeo.
I think Hardison might have spun out because it looks like a part of his winglet might have been a little dented there for the Red Bull machine. He spun at the same spot that we saw the Red Bull spin. This continues to be a rough spot on track for a lot of these drivers. So Spencer Hardison losing a position, now back to 6th place. A battle that looks like it's building up, though, is between the Haas drivers, as Frozen is slowly catching up to Johnson.
Oh, and Tanner goes into the pits, so that battle quickly goes away, and I don't think Haas has any intention of double stacking these drivers so close together. So that means that Tanner Johnson's going to come down pit road. We're going to see what tire he takes. I have a feeling it's going to be the medium tires. It seems like everyone's going for the medium, and it is going to be the mediums for the Haas driver of Tanner Johnson, and Brakey's going to pass him on the racetrack. So if everything goes out, we should be seeing Brakey back into 3rd, and then Frozen will fall back into the 4th position.
Yeah, it's all about when will we see these drivers that started the race off on the mediums, that being Frozen and Bronson Stafford. Both those drivers were waiting to see where will they be coming out of the pits. As out of the pits now, it's going to be Spencer Hardison back in 8th place. JD, who has just been trucking along on those hard compounds, and now up to 6th place, going to be trying to hold off Johnson, who just got fresher tires on the mediums.
Johnson had a bit of a bobble out of turn 2. I was watching him as he came out. He tried to get the power down, and a little too much power on these cold tires, and almost spun it around. That's how JD was able to get around that Haas driver, but as it seems, it looks like the Haas might be a little bit faster than the Ferrari. But I think that JD's got the overall pace. As those hard tires come in, they are really quick, and I think they're underused at this racetrack, because you get them in probably around the lap 15 to 20 range. They're about as fast as the mediums are, especially with how light these cars are getting.
I mean, right now, JD's thinking about only doing one more stop to finish this thing out. As coming into the pits, it's actually going to be the Alfa Romeo of Trenton Jump coming into the pits.
Indeed he is. He's going to probably go for the mediums, and indeed he will. So all these drivers are like-minded. They say great minds think alike, and all these drivers opting for medium tires. The only drivers who haven't come in yet, who are still on mediums, are the leader, Bronson Stafford.
Trent Jump tried to gain time, but then overextended it coming into turn number 2, getting into the dirt trap. Almost got collected, but there was Jump. As coming back on track, Tanner Johnson, who was running up in the 6th place position, now back to 8th.
That was scary. He could have easily ended up getting on the track. A little bit of a unsafe rejoin, if you ask me, but no harm, no foul. Everyone's okay, but that car is going to be very much off the pace. And again, it's another one of those situations. Cold tires catches the driver out.
And with that spin out, we are now gapped out again as we're waiting for two drivers to put in their first pit stop of the day. As we just look back, Spencer Hardison went a little wide there and almost took himself out, but able to continue forward for the Red Bull machine. But at the moment, I'm watching the telemetry between first and second as Matthew Dyer isn't gaining a ton of time, but he's slowly chipping away at Bronson Stafford's time, and it's allowing him to, once we see Bronson come to the pits, this Renault team might be in the lead.
Yeah, Renault has come in with a fast car, and we expected that this car was going to be competitive. We just didn't really know how competitive, and depends on the driver's skill, how well they're able to do their craft. This French team might surprise us, and I'm thoroughly impressed with the pace that this car has. He's just purpled sector 2, if that's any indication of how fast this car is. So it could end up being a very close battle at the end of this race, depending on how strategies go.
Yeah, I mean, we've been questioning who's going to beat out Bronson Stafford, who's won our first 3 races this season, and every single win that he's gotten has been in a dominant fashion. It hasn't really been close at all. This is probably the closest racing we have seen with another car in Bronson Stafford probably since, the start of the season, maybe, because no one has been this close or within 5 seconds this late into a run with that AlphaTauri.
And it doesn't look like that we're very close together, but we're still through a cycle of pit stops. There are 2 drivers who have yet to come down, and those 2 drivers have started on the mediums, as I said before the other Haas driver decided to take the spotlight. Bronson Stafford is that one that started on mediums. Also, the other Haas driver, Frozen Inertia, has also not pitted. He started on mediums as well. And how about that Haas driver? Now, I know that we're still through a cycle, but right now he's on a podium spot, and if things cycle around, he might have a fast car towards the end of this race.
Yeah, Frozen has been slowly chipping away. I mean, I think we've said this almost every single week. He's got decent pace to have a good run up in the top 5 every single week. It's more of the consistency. And that was the one thing last week when we were in Netherlands, is that track was so new and fresh for a lot of drivers that issues were going to be seen, and the whole entire Haas team as a whole just were struggling last week to have a great finish. And now this week, we're seeing Frozen take it extremely wide there, probably the widest, and you don't really want to drive that wide or you can possibly get a penalty for overextension. But it's good to see Haas having a good run right now in 3rd place.
He was almost in the where the old track used to go, the what they now call the MotoGP circuit. So that's not quite the line for our layout today, but I think it would be kind of cool if we went back to that layout. Again, Frozen consistency, and we just saw a good example of where you need to be consistent, because that was not the racing line there.
No, it was not, and you're going to be losing a lot of time due to that. And looking at everyone else, everyone's so gapped out that it's kind of hard to say who's really gaining on who. I think the car that's going to be closest is actually the battle for 7th place, where we're starting to see Tanner Johnson catching up with Spencer Hardison. Yeah, Spencer Hardison's been struggling just slightly with the Red Bull machine here today. Not looking like this is his track.
No, it's at the top of the program we were talking about it. It's a track that you either love it or you hate it, and I think we're seeing exactly which drivers hate the track at the moment, and that would be the Red Bull driver who had a great run at Zandvoort. Was actually, I mean, he's kind of in no man's land, but he was figuring out the track better than the 2 Haas drivers, but not quite as good as the 2 Ferraris. This race, complete opposite. The 2 Haas drivers, aside from Tanner Johnson spinning a couple of times on cold tires, these Haas drivers have seemed to figure out this track, and the Red Bull not really figuring out this track. Maybe the way that the car is set up might be a little bit off. Maybe he's not able to really put power down where he needs to. This is a really flowy track, and unless you have a good rhythm, you're not going to be able to make competitive laps. And I feel bad for him, because we've seen him. He's very fast at other tracks, but not at Catalonia today.
And I'm continuing to look at the telemetry between 1st and 2nd as we're looking at this battle on screen for 7th place. Starting to become something is the fact that Matthew Dyer is not gaining any more time on Bronson Stafford. He's kind of stalled out. And that's the same exact point on those tires that we saw on the softs when Dyer stalled out. So I'm kind of getting concerned that he might only have a short run machine that is burning up those tires early on, because we've been seeing him lock it up almost every single lap, and that could be burning up and really not helping those tires at all during the rest of these stints.
Now you got to be able to save your equipment for the long run, and if you're going to try and stretch these mediums as far as they can potentially go, as we've seen at Bronson Stafford and Frozen Inertia, they've gone 20 laps on these tires. You can extend these tires to go well beyond what you think they can, and if you're going to do that, we have to not have locked up tires. And I'm sure his race engineer is telling him, look, you got to stop locking them into these chicanes. You got to not brake so hard, conserve, and it's hurting him now as he's almost 23 seconds, about the same as when he came out of pit road. So he really hasn't lost or gained anything. He's just kind of been running in no man's land.
Well, he was gaining. He's lost over a second now since we started talking about his tire issues. And this Renault team, I was telling you that bubble marker that he was looking for was to be between 15 and 20 seconds, I should say, of a gap difference between first and second once Bronson came into the pits. We're waiting to see when our front runners will come into the pits, but we are coming up to a quarter of the way through this race, and we're going to take a quick side-by-side when looking at have some of our providers that help us bring this show to you, and we'll be right back after these commercials.
Since the VFW was founded, their mission was really to look out for the veterans community, to make sure that our nation upholds its promise to really care for the service member, the veteran, and his or her family. There are several ways that the VFW fights for veterans today. The top services include disability claims assistance, advocacy on Capitol Hill and with the Department of Veterans Affairs. We also offer scholarship opportunities, and then also volunteerism. For me personally, when I came back from Iraq, my life experience was drastically different from those around me, and the veterans of foreign wars really spoke to me. The reason I would encourage veterans who have served overseas today to join the VFW is because this is your organization. The VFW is for veterans. Every generation, a new generation of leaders steps up in the veterans of foreign wars and fights for the veterans community.
The Veterans of Foreign Wars. No one does more for veterans. For more information on the VFW, go to ahctv.com/sacrifice.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for watching the commercials. Sponsor does. And here on the track, though, it's Bronson Stafford. He has not let up since where he started this season off. He's already has 3 wins this season, trying to go for win number 4 to sweep all the races that have been ran so far. But here's the thing. There's some new blood out there. That's Matthew Dyer running in second place in the Renault team, and he is in striking distance to catch up to this AlphaTauri team. It just matters on what strategies start to hit and which ones are working on, as it looks like as this run goes on, Matthew Dyer is losing a little bit of time, but also there's always a chance of a penalty that will hurt these drivers, as we are still in the middle of a pit sequence, as Brunson Stafford has not pitted yet, nor has Frozen. And oh, Matt Dyer just wrecked! He just spun around, hurting his front wing, and just like that, a potential chance to win this race is out the window.
That was shocking, to say the least. And it was in one of these turns that we haven't really seen people have problems in. It was on the run up to one of the fastest turns of the racetrack, and I can't... That was kind of shocking in a bit.
I mean, in a way, when you're driving up the hill in that spot, your car gets light. You hit the rumble strips just wrong, and it looks like that's exactly what happened to this Renault team, and he's going to have to bring it into the pits. That's one extra pit stop that he doesn't want to do, and all this time he could have been gaining and possibly bringing back into this battle for the lead is all out the window now, as he's actually going to be staying out. Is he coming into the pits? Okay, he is. My camera did not switch properly, so I was nervous that he was staying out. But just like that, what was a battle that potentially was for the lead out the window. Now you have the AlphaTauri team coming up to lap traffic here.
And now, what strategy do you think they're going to go with now? You think they're putting him on hards? This is the last stop for this team.
He has to. I mean, he has to switch to the hards, knowing that probably Bronson Stafford is going to be staying with the hards as well, coming to the end of this thing, or he could be pitting twice. The gap is going to be so massive now that between Bronson and Brinky, it is 49 seconds, almost 50-second gap between the AlphaTauri and the Ferrari, who we saw Brinky have issues earlier on. He's under fire now between himself and Frozen, as he's just gotten by Frozen.
Yeah, we were too focused on the Renault crashing that we didn't even see this pass for second place and put that Ferrari back in the second place position, back to a podium. And don't look now, but JD, the other Ferrari driver, is slowly closing in on this battle also. He's 2.3 seconds behind the Haas driver, and don't count these Ferraris out. We saw JD with a lot of problems, qualified near the back of the pack, had an incident very early on in the race, now back looking for a podium.
They're looking for a podium. This is a great spot to be. Matthew Dyer, we saw running in second. Potential chance to battle for the lead, now all the way back to sixth place. But we were watching this battle for second place as Brinky trying to pull away, but he doesn't have DRS, but the machine's behind him too, as Frozen trying to make a charge to stay with the Ferrari as he's on the much older medium compounds.
And also, don't look now, but that Alfa Romeo who's had problems, Trenton Jump is only 5.5 seconds behind JD. So this second through fifth is almost right with each other. So this could get really interesting towards this end of the run, especially with JD, because he's kind of the wild card. He's on hard tires. He doesn't have to pit again if he conserves his tires, because we've seen how fast these cars can go when they're on mediums. Speaking of mediums, Bronson Stafford into the pits this lap. We're going to see what the strategy is for this AlphaTauri team. It's going to be the hard compound. Sorry, it's the mediums.
He's doing a medium soft to finish this thing out, because I don't think that he can finish this race out on those mediums, but he will finish it out with about 10 laps to go possibly. Switch to the softs. That is the strategy call for this AlphaTauri team, as they are going to be trying to finish this race out strong as they continue to push forward. But man, that is so demoralizing for Matthew Dyer, who was just a couple of laps short from possibly being running right on the back bumper of the AlphaTauri.
Yeah, that he would have been coming out around the final turnaround when that AlphaTauri was exiting pit road. They would have been right back together with each other, but again, this track just takes out somebody, and you think that maybe they're having a great run and they're running a perfect race, and it only took one little tiny bobble, and now that team is struggling. But he just put down a purple sector 3 on the hard tires. I think he's a little too far back to be really within contention, but he's only about he's only about 5.5 seconds behind Trenton Jump, who is about 4.5 seconds away from second through fourth. And second through fourth is only about 30 seconds behind Bronson Stafford, and we know that Bronson Stafford has to pit one more time. Call me crazy, but this race is nowhere close to being over.
There's still the potential chance of a safety car coming out with the car wrecking out of this race. We've seen the machine spinning it around, but a safety car would be massive for a lot of these cars. Also looking out for these machines is a lot of cars still need to pit at least one more time. As we're looking at the pit stops that have been shown so far, Frozen still hasn't pitted yet. Right now in third, everyone else has pitted at least one time. Matthew Dyer is the only one that's pitted twice. I believe he is done with pits. Everyone else still needs to come at least one more time. But Frozen, possibly he's going for the, he's trying to stay out there until he has to pit once more. So then he can just switch to the hards and finish this thing out with the hard compounds.
He's going to stay out until he absolutely has to, where his pace is so bad that he has to come in, as he just got passed by JD for the third position. Trenton Jump is also closing in on this group of cars like we mentioned, and he's bringing Matthew Dyer with him. And, well, like, I want to touch up on a point that you made, that these drivers have to pit again. I don't think JD has any intention of trying to pit again. I know he pitted early, and he's been on these tires for nearly the entire race. However, if the mediums were able to last this long, and especially with Frozen having such pace as he does now on these mediums, how much pace do you think that these hard tires for JD are going to be? I honestly think that he's going to be able to try and stretch these tires all the way to the end. He may not be the fastest car at the end of this race, but he will save a mountain amount of time, and maybe potentially a second, or at the very least a podium.
I believe JD has to at least pit one more time. He might be switching the softs with about 5 to 10 laps to go at the end of this thing, but I just cannot see how he could stay out here for that long on the hards to finish out this race. I mean, you got to remember, he came in, what, about 5-6 laps into this race, and then he had to pit again. As Frozen coming in for his pit stop, we'll stay on board to see what compound tires that the Haas machine goes to. We're expecting to see the hards, but it could be the softs or go to a medium. Well, there's a lot of strategy to be seen here, as it will be for the hards. This final stop for Frozen, unless he has some type of issue spinning out and having some wing damage.
Now, this is going to be an interesting bag of strategies. We didn't ever see one that was medium hard, so this might be a one-stopper for the Haas team. That's going to be interesting to see at the end of the race.
That is one of the strategies that F1 likes to give you in-game. The one-stopper, it is possible to do, but your tires are going to be shot by the end of the thing. That's why I'm thinking that it might be impossible for JD to make it to the end, because those tires are, well, the harder ones are going to be so worn down just by pitting at the halfway marker, and he pitted way earlier than that. And that's why I'm thinking he'll have to at least pit either to the softs or mediums to finish this race out.
About 3 laps before halfway, and a bag of strategies being played. The lead is massive, 34.4 seconds for Bronson Stafford at lap 30, going on towards lap, or actually he just now took lap 30. He's actually coming out of turn 5 at the moment. Now, but the intervals are pretty close between the second and third place drivers. Those are the 2 Ferraris who, at the very beginning of this race, and even a little bit through the first third of the race, it looked like these 2 were pretty much out of it. But now they're running back very competitively, and I dare say if they hadn't had those bobbles, they might be contending for the lead at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, everyone has had at least one type of bobble here today, except for Bronson Stafford, and that's why he had 30-plus second lead on the rest of the field. And that was one of the things that we talked about at the start of the show, is the drivers need to be consistent. That's what they need to have if they want to win a championship. And that's what the AlphaTauri team has had with Bronson Stafford, as he continues to be running up front. And, you know, we're looking at the drivers and where they're running at the moment. It's a big enough lap lead, like there's a big enough gap between first and second. When Bronson switches to those softs, he might just be gunning it to be possibly going for the fastest lap of the day at the end of this race to make sure he has that 1-point bonus point for himself, as well as maximizing his points with the lead.
Yeah, that's a true thing. He's going to have a big enough lead to do it, as you said. On the DRS, is JD going down the front stretch? Is he going to have a go at his teammate into turn 1? Not quite. Don't want to run into each other yet. As you can see, these drivers a number of times be right next to each other and have a little less than teammate-like affair, but so far these drivers are keeping it clean, and I'm actually kind of surprised to see that JD's faster on the hards at the moment. The 25-lap-old hards, give Brakey some credit. He's on 17-lap-old mediums. That just shows you how much better the hards are in the long run.
Yeah, but he even brought it up, the fact that the longer a run goes on, the better the hards get. They actually compete with the mediums and the softs at some point, but it's more of, do you have the patience to get to that point where you can finally start running down everyone around you, as JD has the DRS zone, but not close enough to make that pass. And it's going to be a teamwork pass here. Make sure that you're not hurting one another and you're not holding anyone else back up. But based on Australia, the drivers were not very kind there, but they've gotten better and better every race that we've been to.
Yeah, and I don't think team orders really apply here. You'd think that maybe Ferrari's telling these drivers, you might want to swap positions. It seems like JD's a little bit faster than you, but at the same time, it doesn't really look like he's able to really gain much ground. He's on DRS at the moment. He's not going to be able to make a pass into turn 1 this time, way too far back. He's going to drive it down really deep into turn 1. But we see him close up in the middle of the lap. He's able to catch back up to his teammate, and I wouldn't be surprised if a couple of these laps is going to break, because he's already back right on his gearbox. And if he gets to the second DRS zone, if he's able to get a run out of turn 8, he might be able to do it. I don't know if he'll be able to, though.
I think he needs to be within 2/10, and then with the DRS, he might be able to make the pass. These drivers running extremely close. I don't think they're going to be close enough, though. Coming through the corner, DRS open. Here comes JD. Yeah, not close enough. Needs to be a little bit closer next time. As the drivers were battling on, I'm going to drop back because it looks like Jump was gaining on these guys. He still is gaining slightly as the Ferraris continue to battle hard as they are right on top of one another.
Oh yeah, this is a much better run than the last time for JD. He's going to get the power down out of the chicane onto the front straight. He's going to be in DRS range. He's much closer than he was last lap. He's on the overtake. He's got plenty of ERS to burn. It's going to be side by side going down into turn 1. And it looks like that maybe JD's going to have the advantage. Give that position to JD. But
this car,
not going away.
That's going to be Spencer Hardison having issues in Sector 3 for the Red Bull team, and their woes continue. Team Red Bull, as we move back up front for the Ferraris, as they're still battling close to one another. But yeah, JD, after being the first car to spin out and have issues, now up to second place.
Yeah, and that's been a really mighty drive for this team, and now he, like you said, he might have to pit again, but if he can somehow go the distance, he's looking really good right now. But if he can't, then he's going to be swallowed up by a lot of these drivers behind him, such as drivers like Matthew Dyer, who is pretty much okay to go to the end of the race. Frozen and Nerdia, he's definitely not going to have to pit again if he can make those hard tires last. So those drivers might be able to jump through and get the position away from him. Trenton Jump will have to pit again sometime soon. In fact, Brakey, another one of those drivers, who's going to have to pit again soon. Those tires getting worn out, and you can see the hard tire for JD so much quicker than the worn mediums. He's going to actually pull up out a 1.2 second gap by the end of the lap. That just shows you how much that Brakey is pulling up JD.
Yeah, holding him up on sun, but it also gives you a lot of promise for Matthew Dyer, who is gaining up on Trent Jump. Mr. Jump is also closing up the gap between himself and Brakey. So at this point, I think Matthew Dyer might be able to pass both these drivers, but I know both of them thinking about pitting here in the next 5, possibly 5 to 8 laps.
And what a story for drivers such as Trenton Jump, such as Brakey, such as JD, that even that they're in this position to begin with. JD almost took himself out of the race earlier. That crash looked hard enough to maybe end his day, but he was able to survive it. Now he's back in second place. Brakey, another one of those drivers, had some bad luck, spun it through turn 6, was able to keep going. Now he's still running in the 3rd position. Trenton Jump, another one of those drivers with a problem, looked like he was down and out, has clawed his way up through the field, now running down the Ferraris for a potential podium. Matthew Dyer, another driver of those, had problems on the hard tire. Now he's making his way back up. He's much faster than these drivers in front of him. He could easily find himself back into 2nd place at the very least. It just shows you, with the right determination, you can get back into this thing.
Yeah, and it also shows what could have happened as if they didn't have issues. I mean, we're showing you that you don't have just a 40-second gap lead on the rest of the field as that AlphaTauri just keeps on going. I gotta give
Oh, the Red Bull's off.
Oh, Spencer Hardison goes again.
Yeah, that car is not at all well. It's very bad. Oh, we gotta look out. AlphaTauri trying to get around the Haas. That could have been bad. That's a very poorly looking Red Bull. He's been sweet. Wow, words. He's been swerving all over the track, trying to find some grip. Not there. Another issue for him.
I mean, Anthony, you could probably talk more about this, but when you spin, these tires just get heated up so much, and that grip is nowhere to be found. I mean, how do you even try to rebound after some of these spins?
Well, when you spin, I come from a different background. It's the same logic that applies, though, when you're racing GTs. Whenever you spin, you're already running on the brink of having hot tires to begin with. You're in a zone, and there's very distinct zones of being too cold, too hot, and then just right. Too cold tires, you have grip, not as much grip. It feels like the car wants to slide, but you know the spinning aspect is not really there. You get too hot, it's the opposite. You feel like you're on ice. It doesn't feel like you can do anything, and you try to put power down, but all your tires are doing is just spinning. If your rear tires get too hot, it's almost impossible to put any power down. And even in GTs, that some GT3s and GT4s that have not ABS, but have traction control, even then you're struggling for grip. These cars don't have any sort of traction control, so when you're trying to put power down, it's almost impossible, even though these cars have so much grip, and that's where we see some drivers have struggles. Now, to combat that, you basically have to limp around the track until your tires cool down. The things you can do to cool down your tires is to be easier on the brakes, maybe not push it into the turn so much. Front stretches are your best friend. Getting out into a long run down the straight will cool your tires down. Getting off the racing line a bit, as we've seen Spencer Hardison do, getting off the racing line, getting some rubber, trying to find some areas where it might not be raced on as much. That's another strategy, and you just kind of have to wait. There's really nothing else you can do.
And it's a great, showing for these drivers that need to continue. Just do their best to get spun around and have those hot tires. Is on screen right now. You're seeing the battle place. Brakey under fire from Trent Jump. Here's the difference, though. They're both on the medium compounds, but Trent Jump has 3-lap fresher tires than the Ferrari in front of him. And don't look now, but Matthew Dyer is also on the charge to catch him right now.
Well, you can see just how much Trenton Jump is pushing. He ran so wide into turn 4, and a lot of drivers have been doing that. They've been trying to get the best possible run out of there. He's going to have a go by the end of this lap. I have a feeling that Alfa Romeo is fast. And we got to remember, these two are basically sister teams, so very similar in the way of power output. And of course, with these cars running the way they are, they're very similar downforce. So sister teams trying to have a go at each other. Alfa Romeo, the smaller team, to Ferrari, they both run the same engine. Good showing. Ooh, Brakey one's really wide. Going into the chicane section down the front stretch. Probably gonna have DRS.
Here comes Trent Jump, and you can see there on your bottom right, when that overtake button is green, that means their ERS is at full power, and they can just go as hard as they want. Now that power supply, they have a limited amount of it per lap. Also, you have your own energy system that you got to be careful of in the percentage aisle in that ERS zone that you can look there on the bottom right. Also, the DRS symbol, when that's green, that means those wings are open and they're going quick. as Trent Jump is right on the back gearbox of that Ferrari, trying to make some moves. But the closer they are to one another, the harder they run, the more that Renault is coming.
And speaking of runs, we've seen drivers only make passes with the DRS. Now, Trenton Jump's trying to do the opposite. Down out of turn 5, he almost had a little bit. He's trying to do the cutback, but not enough. And now, up through Campsis they go. Well, towards Campsis they go. Trenton's going to have DRS again, and he might be able to make a move down to this corner. He looks like they're weaving, trying to break the wake, and he's going to have a run.
He's going to try to outbreak the Ferrari and does it as that Alfa Romeo gets a little squirrely there. So the harder they run like this, I mean, that Renault is almost less than a second on their back bumper.
Three-way battle for the 3rd position, and that Ferrari is now going to have DRS going down the front straight. That Renault of Matthew Dyer is going to have DRS. This is a 3-way battle that's probably not going to go away for at least another lap.
DRS goes to the Ferrari. It did not go for the Renault. It was not close enough, just a couple of tenths away. But coming down the front stretch, here comes the Ferrari into turn number 1, diving it down to the inside as they're side by side through turn number 1.
Whoa, and they got squeezed a little bit. They kind of had to go off the track, did the Alfa Romeo did. And now, through turn 3, essentially a Parabolica-like turn. Not really the Parabolica, but something that's close to it. And wow, that was so close. That could have ended in a disaster. Kudos to them for keeping it clean. And now here comes the Renault of Matthew Dyer into the mix. He's going to have DRS up through Campsis, I think. And now that Ferrari's in a bad way. He's going to have to catch up to his sister team and fall into the clutches of the French team.
Yeah, the longer this run goes, the worse those mediums are going to get. They're kind of past their prime at this point as Matthew Dyer, he just purpled Sector 2 in the hards. He is coming with a head of steam and trying to pass these drivers. The Renault team, I mean, he has a chance to still finish in 2nd even after that spin, just because of everyone else having their woes throughout this race.
Indeed he does, and he's right in this mix. He's gonna have the DRS down the front straight. Oh, well, never mind. Oh! Trenton Jump parked it in the pit entrance.
And I believe that might have hurt the Ferrari's wing.
What was he doing?
I mean, he was trying to slow down. I believe the Ferrari's wing is okay.
Oh, he got away with murder on that one. That could have been disastrous for this team, but Trenton Jump, the Alpha just parked it. I don't know what was happening there, but they're going to cut. They pitted at the same time. That gives Matthew Dyer the 3rd position, but now these two drivers are on the same tire, the same exact time. This battle is not over.
It is not, and you know Breaky is not happy with the way that just went down. He's going to try his best. They're both on the same medium compound. And before, during that last battle, Breaky was on the older tire. So we'll see if Breaky now, on the same set, can try to run down this Alfa Romeo as, you know, we've got 2 Alphas out here. The AlphaTauri team with Rob Stafford still leading the way with 42-second gap on JD, but we know that Alfa Romeo still needs to pit one more time. As Matthew Dyer trying to warm up his wear and tear on those harder compounds, as he's about 7 seconds away from JD.
Yeah, that battle is closing in. He's making up time, and JD's another one's right. He's in the pits right now. JD has just come down on the pit road, so this will most likely be his final stop. That's going to put Matthew Dyer back in the 2nd. What's the tire going to be for the Ferrari? It's going to be mediums.
Yeah, he pitted way too early to try to think about going to the softs. I think the only driver that is going to finish this race on the softs will most likely be, you know, maybe if Johnston and Spencer can push it a little bit further, but it's looking like Bronson Stafford, the only driver that will be finishing on the softer compounds at the end of this thing. But can we see JD possibly run down the Renault with Matthew Dyer, who just now is back into 2nd after his spin back about 20 laps ago.
49 seconds and closing. It's not even... It jumped 49 seconds to 2:49 seconds because of JD or break or whichever of the 2 Ferraris pitted. I forgot which one it was, but they pitted, and now that Renault is closing, slowly chipping away at the gap. But again, those hards are not quite there yet to be competitive with the mediums. Just shows you though he's been able to keep that pace a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if they're really close by the end of this race.
And talking about Ferraris, it's going to be Breaky still within a second as the DRSs were coming up through the hill. And Yeah, this Ferrari team looking to try to rebound after their early spins. JD up in third place. Brakey right now in fifth. Possibly could get by jump here and move himself up to fourth. But trying to jump that Alfa Romeo, they are going to be trying their best to hold off this Ferrari team that have been so quick, so consistent up front.
And JD is purple sector 2, I saw, and I don't think he's going to purple sector 3. He kind of did. But yeah, this Ferrari team is definitely keeping pace, but now I don't think that Brakey's really been able to, I mean, he's been able to keep with the Alfa Romeo, as you said, but I don't think he's really gaining that much. He needs the DRS to be able to pull within this much. He's got a nice run down this very long front stretch.
He really carried that speed into turn number 1 and kept it close there with the Alfa Romeo. Jump must feel a little nervous there because that Ferrari and its mirrors closed up extremely quick.
And we keep saying DRS, and I know there's some viewers that might not be super familiar with Formula One and its lingo. What the DRS is it stands for drag reduction system, and basically the rule is whenever you're within 1 second of the car in front of you, there's a little flap on the rear wing that you can open up and essentially allow the air to pass through the rear wing, essentially eliminating a lot of the drag. There are 2 DRS zones on this track. In fact, you see it right there when the rear wing opened on the Ferrari. Now, there are 2 zones on this track that are considered DRS zones. You can only open it in those 2 sections. Some tracks have 3, some tracks like Monaco only have 1. And basically what it is because these cars are so aerodynamic dependent that when you get on a front stretch, that's really the best place to try and make a move to try and pass each other. So now you'll see, again, Brakey within 1 second of Trenton jump will get within the DRS zone, and there's a little line on the track that shows you where you can use it. You see the DRS signs on the side. He's on it. He's actually got a really good run down the front stretch. This battle is not over.
No, and Brakey, he's been carrying in so much more speed through 1 and 2 that he's going to stay right on the back gearbox of the Alfa Romeo. And yet, the DRS system is so important for these drivers to really be able to carry their speed. I mean, the DRS is only open after lap 3 for the rest of the race. And then also another time that it will not be utilized is whenever it's raining. So the DRS is so important for drivers. They can still use the draft to make some passes, but once you have DRS, you can really, if you're within 4/10 of another driver, you can make a pass on any of these hard braking zones.
Especially now that you have the overtake button. And that's another thing that's very important for making these passes, the DRS and being able to overtake. If you're familiar with IndyCar, it's essentially the push to pass system, but it basically turns the ERS mode up to 100%. Unlike IndyCar, they don't have a certain limit to how many times they can use it. As long as you've got ERS, which is recovered by braking, that's what ERS stands for, Energy Recovery System. As long as you've got percentage, you've got ERS.
Yeah, there's only a certain amount of ERS overtake that you can use per lap, and it gets reset every single time you cross the line. But the percentage is about 100%. That is recovered by braking. So there's 2 different recoveries that the drivers have to keep in mind while racing around here. So it's not just run fast on this track. There's a lot of mind games as well as a lot of buttons you got to worry about while racing these very technical machines here at Spain.
It's very very much like the prototypes, the P1s that you see, the LMP ones more specifically, the Toyota TS50 and when they race the Audis and the Porsches, they also have a similar thing. They don't have DRS, but they do have essentially what is a boost button, and that's kind of what these are. It's a little different with these drivers. Each lap, the boost gets reset for the LMP1, so they can basically use it throughout the lap, and it gets reset at the end of the lap. These cars don't do that.
Yeah, and just coming out of the pits is going to be Tanner Johnson, and that machine going to the medium. So looking like we've only got a couple of other drivers that need to come to the pits. That's going to be Spencer Hartson as well as Bronson Stafford. It should be our last 2 drivers to come to the pits. And I think Matthew Dyer was trying to gain time on the AlphaTauri team, and just he has not. He's been losing time ever since we've seen Bronson be switched to those mediums. And it's just probably going to continue to grow. As right now, it is 51 seconds and growing between Bronson Stafford and Matthew Dyer. And I know that even if Matthew Dyer didn't have that extra pit stop that he needed to do, that and him not being on the strat that he wanted to be on, I know for a fact that he probably would have finished this race out if we kept it green. It's probably going to be about 10 to 20 seconds behind the Salvatore team, just because of Bronson Stafford being so quick and consistent and just dominating this league so far.
Yeah, he's put a run around all these drivers, and you know, all credit to him. Fantastic driver, able to continue to show his dominance. He won the season opener Australia. That was probably the craziest race we've had so far. It seemed like everything that could happen did happen. Everything from penalties being handed out to a virtual safety car to an actual safety car. And then we had a 5-second penalty slapped on the leader, who then had to pull within 5 seconds, and then someone able to win the race. He was able to do it. A dominating performance on strategy at Bahrain, was able to leapfrog through the field and only really be able to do one less stop than everyone else. And then at Zandvoort, again, just pure pace. He was able to figure out the track and able to run fast laps and consistent laps. And here today, he's been the only driver to not have something happen to him. All these other drivers you see 2nd through 8th, they have had at least one spin or off-track moment. The only driver that hasn't has been Bronson Stafford, which really puts into perspective, how much is he pushing? How much would this race be different if some of these drivers hadn't spun? Because Matthew Dyer, when he spun, it took maybe 10 seconds out of his time, 10 to 15 seconds by the time he got pointed in the right direction, and then he had to come down pit road for another 20 seconds. You eliminate that right now, especially if he went to hards as a strategy to begin with. If you eliminate that, he's within striking distance. If a pit stop happened, he'd be the leader.
Yeah, we are now looking at the fastest laps that have been placed, and we are going to glitched lap on lap number 1. But based on all the other drivers that are out there, fastest car that has put down a lap actually goes to Trent Jump and that Alfa Romeo team. And a fantastic run on his part with a 120.012 compared. That's about 200 slower. I mean, 200 faster than Bronson Stafford's fastest time. As these drivers continue to be ticking away on pace, and we'll continue to be looking over and seeing where these drivers will be placed at the end of this thing. But Matthew Dyer not going to have the fastest lap here today after getting the pole for the race. But man, just overall, so far, a lot of drivers out here have only done 2 to 1 stops. We'll see if anyone has to do 3 stops. And our biggest movers of the race goes to JD for four positions, 3 positions for Bronson Stafford. Our biggest loser of positions actually will be going to Breaky down 3.
Yeah, that was he qualified very well. In fact, he qualified a 2nd place position, not doing very particularly well today. But you got to give credit again to those Ferrari drivers. They both had issues, and JD from the very beginning of this race had an issue, and he was able to claw his way back up. He qualified pretty poorly, and like you said, he's up 4, and that's pretty good. Another driver that we need to give some kudos to is Frozen. He is up 2 positions. He started last. He's running a very solid 6th place.
Yeah, I mean, Frozen, we saw as we're just watching him. Frozen is someone that we've always talked about. We've stated it multiple times here today. He's got decent pace. He just needs to figure out qualifying times and consistency throughout the race. And we are coming to lap 50 here soon for these drivers. We're actually going to be taking a quick and final break here, and we will be back to all the racing action to finish up the rest of this race. As right now, in the lead, lap 49 of 66 have been ran. Bronson Stafford up to a 53-second lead, and no one's close. I think even if he makes a mistake at this point, he'll have to DNF himself if he wants to lose this race. But we'll be right back to racing action here in just a few.
Since the VFW was founded, their mission was really to look out for the veterans community, to make sure that our nation upholds its promise to really care for the service member, the veteran, and his or her family. There are several ways that the VFW fights for veterans today. The top services include disability claims assistance, advocacy on Capitol Hill and with the Department of Veterans Affairs. We also offer scholarship opportunities, and then also volunteerism. For me personally, when I came back from Iraq, my life experience was drastically different from those around me, and the veterans of foreign wars really spoke to me. The reason I would encourage veterans who have served overseas today to join the VFW is because this is your organization. The VFW is for veterans. Every generation, a new generation of leaders steps up in the veterans of foreign wars and fights for the veterans community.
The Veterans of Foreign Wars. No one does more for veterans. For more information on the VFW, go to ahctv.com/sacrifice.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the series. And on top of the board, it's Bronson Stafford. Not surprised to see the AlphaTauri team just dominating still, as he has already won our first 3 races of the season, looking to make it 4 with a 54.2 second gap lead between himself and new blood Matthew Dyer and the Renault team. But it's just been gaining and gaining on that gap. And my name is Sam. I've got Anthony with me. And Anthony, it's been a wild race so far as we're seeing Spencer Hartson come to the pits.
Yeah, again, he's, like you said, a really, really crazy race. And I'm surprised that Spencer was able to stay out that long. He put 34 laps almost on those medium tires. And he was losing a lot of time, but it looks like he's going to try and go out for that fastest lap as he's on the softs. First driver since the beginning of the race to be on softs, and Frozen just got a 3-second penalty for too many warnings.
Yeah, not listening to the warnings, that's where you can get hit. Bronson Stafford coming in for his final pit stop of the day. 24 laps on these mediums, and he will not be losing the lead, but he's going to probably switch to the softs and just try to burn and pull away from Matthew Dyer. Now here's the thing, Matthew Dyer does not have this lead in his second place position really fully secured, as JD has been slowly chipping away at this Renault team, as it is now 4.7 seconds. And it was pretty far back there for a second there, but it just seems like the longer that these harder compounds are being utilized, the quicker that Renault team gets.
Yeah, it's slowly coming in. About now is when we see them shine. Also, the car is light now, so the hard tires, we've decided week in and week out that these hard tires, once the car gets light, it's basically like running some mediums at the end of the race, especially now because it's kind of broken in. But JD is closing in, and we'll see, like you said, a battle for the second position.
Battle for the second position could be inching away as we're starting to dwindle away. Been placed onto the AlphaTauri team. Bronson Stafford gonna be gunning it for that fastest lap of the race to finish this thing off and try to maximize his points. His teammate Hazardous was not here for the race here today, and trying to gain as many points as possible. See purple sector 2. Bronson Stafford, he did this back in Bahrain where he had the fastest lap as well as won the race. He didn't have his teammate and kept constructor points for AlphaTauri, looking to continue that. Kind of looking like a one-man show at this point with Hazardous only making 2 of our 4 races so far.
Yeah, and the Ferraris have not had a very good showing today. Brakey has lost touch with the Alfa Romeo of Trenton Jump, who has just fallen so far back, or Brakey has fallen so far back behind, and it almost makes you wonder what would have happened if that Alfa Romeo hadn't had issues. We have a yellow flag. Speaking of,
Trenton Jump dumping it, same spot as we've seen all the other acts. As that Alfa Romeo team having issues gifting us position to Brakey, and Brakey was running around 5th, now up to 4th place, and it's kind of this position we're used to seeing Ferrari back in our 1st and 2nd race of the season, where they finished both 3rd and 4th back then. As it just looks like Trent Jump just trying to gain back the time that he lost, but at the same time trying to figure out how to get grip into that machine, as he is still falling off, now back down to 6th position, losing a spot there to Frozen.
man, that was scary. He almost dumped it up through the hill, and man, he's still trying to find some grip. That car is not looking very happy at all. Those tires are probably still very hot right now. He's got to be careful. Now down the front straight, he's going to try to run back down Frozen, and I think we need to make a new rule. Do not mention his name.
Yeah, we said it, and this happened twice now this race, where we've seen the team having issues. We'll talk about other teams as we stay on board with Trip Jump. And, looking at constructors now, as long as Bronson gets a max amount of points, I believe that he will actually tie with the amount of points that Ferrari will get, which then will keep us tied in constructors for another week.
Yeah, and that's big, considering that there's a 2-car effort versus a 1-car effort. But when you get max points, and it's on when you add up the points that the 2 individual drivers get, it's almost like it's a one. It doesn't matter. But the very fact that a 1-car team with the right amount of pace can pull away from a 2-car team, that's just showing just the amount of dominance that AlphaTauri team has. And speaking of the man that we shall not name, he's about to make a pass on the Haas, and the Haas just kind of gives it to him.
And that is frustrating for Haas to get by and passed by the team that we shall not name, as we are coming up. It's 11 laps to go. When Bronson passes the line, it's going to be 10 laps to go, and it's really just been a dominating day ever since he got the lead. A little bit off sequence from everyone else. Tried the medium tires out to turn this into a 2-stopper, where he went with the medium to softs to finish this race off. And it's been a fantastic run on his part. I think you touched on this back in Bahrain. You're better off going with the harder compounds at the start and finishing off the race on the softs or mediums at the end, so you have the most amount of grip, and you can really show your pace and really start to pull away or gain on the drivers in front of you.
It's a time to shine. The car is at its lightest. You're familiar with the track. You've been running this track for so long that it's just kind of like in the back of your mind. It's almost muscle memory at this point. So why not go out and run some mock qualifying laps? That's where we see the fastest laps of the race come in, is towards the end of the run. And yeah, put on the softest compound. Especially if you're in a battle, you definitely want that softest compound in order to go the full distance. And that's what Bronson Stafford's done. He's opted to take the harder or the medium compound at the start of the race, and then at the end, when the car is at its best, put on the fastest compound, really pull away.
And we're actually going to stay on board with the AlphaTauri here, just because we're going to have 2 lap machines. It's going to be Frozen and the car that cannot be named. So we'll see how Bronson Stafford can do this, get by these lap machines, because even in stock car races, it's still possible. And I know we're in F1, but lap machine trouble for our leaders is always a possibility when you're trying to get by another machine.
Oh yeah, it was a small mistake, maybe a driver in front checking up that you weren't expecting. We saw on the pit road entry where Trenton Jump just parked it in the pit road entry, and it caused Brakey to slam his brakes and actually run into the back of the Alpha. And you gotta be careful. It's never over. You cannot think that a race is over just because you have a massive lead, just because you're on the softest compound, just because you have every single advantage your way. You don't ever assume the race is over, and looks like the Haas was taking a pretty evasive line there.
We've seen him do that before, and he took it just a little bit too much speed, but also thought getting back on track, he's going to be in front of the leader, might as well take it wider than I would usually take it, just to give that position away. But the gap now between Bronson and Matthew Dyer is almost back to 40 seconds, but the gap between second and third is now down to almost just 3 seconds, as Matthew Dyer is losing time on JD. But is there enough time for JD to catch up to the Renault?
Possibly. There's a little bit less than 8 laps left by the end, and we can see that Ferrari in the same camera shot sometimes as this Renault. So it's going to be really, really close. I think if JD can catch, he's on the faster compound tire, but they are getting towards the end of the run for those medium tires. You still got to stretch it a little farther beyond the normal run that they do. I think they might have timed it perfectly, but on old hards, I don't think that Matt Dyer is going to have much contention to keep that second position unless he makes that Renault as wide as possible.
And he's going to do his best, as Matthew Dyer, like we've stated, the new guy in town, is signed by Renault earlier this week and is a part-timer so far. Had some free time in his schedule to be racing here today, and just got word that sometime next month or maybe in a month and a half, we will be seeing this Renault on the track full time, which is exciting to see just because of the pace difference is frozen into the pits.
The car was looking kind of poorly. I was kind of expecting him to come in the pits. He overdrove. He tried to run the old line twice, and I think it's time for a change from that. He's possibly going to run hot laps. Yeah, he's going to softs. He's going to try and run hot laps.
As we continue to watch the battle for second, that little gap actually grew what was about to be 3 seconds, now 3.5. It could be the fact that those mediums have finally hit their marks and are kind of fading away as the better at this point, as we're inching closer and closer to the end of this race. We are now 8 laps away, about to be 7 once we see Bronson cross the line, but it's still wild every week seeing how much Bronson Stafford is just dominating on the rest of the field.
Now, he's been able to find the formula. Formula One driving is an art. It's very much different than any other form of motorsport that we see in the world right now. And with how fast these cars are and how precise you have to be, you're either fantastic at it or you get it completely wrong. There are medium drivers, there's always that middle pack where everyone's kind of the same zone and you're not really either good nor bad, but if you're going to be a 40-second advantage, and you have to be perfect, and that's the thing that Bronson Stafford has been this race specifically, is perfect. Even at Bahrain, everyone was having spins, everyone was having trouble with that track, and he was the only one there that didn't really have anything major happen to him. Same thing with last week at Zandvoort. Nothing really major happened to anybody. He was just able to find out the circuit. Because of that, we saw the closest these drivers have been to him this entire season, other than Australia. And that's a race that he himself had problems too. You always have to be consistent. Consistency, I've said it once, I'll keep saying it. Consistency wins you championships, and it's winning run right now.
It really is. We're watching the battle for last place as Tanner Johnson decides, I just think, okay, I'm about to lose this position. Might as well get the freshest tires I can. Spencer Hardison now up to 7th place. That was a little bit of a fun battle to watch for a second there. You know what's going to be even more is a car just spun out in Sector 2, and I believe that is Matthew Dyer in the Renault, who was running in second, having issues again in the harder compounds.
That car is very slow. Something is very wrong with the Renault.
I don't. He's getting back onto the pace. Something massive happened for the Renault for him to have to come to a complete stop. Losing second place. Luckily, he has a big enough gap between himself and fourth that he should be all right. But man, you hate to see that. The wings look like they're all right, but a huge disappointment for the Renault, who has a second spin here today.
Looks like he was trying to find what gear he needed to be in. There's something else very not wrong with that car. That car is very poorly at the moment. Not at all running at top condition. I would suggest it's mechanical. I don't know.
I mean, he might possibly think about just pitting now, getting fresh tires, and hope that he can run down Brakey. It's just not looking good as he's going to stay out. It could be just because of the spin and how old these tires are. And the heat that was already built up just got worse than it was previously. But now JD up to second. A huge comeback for a driver that spun out on our first lap of the race, actually.
Yeah, who would have thought we would see JD in the second place position? That's just the nature of this race so far. So many drivers have had issues, and primarily, again, why Bronson has such a huge lead. But what a comeback drive. Started at the back of the field to begin with. I don't think he started. Yeah, he did start at the last row of the grid for this race. Being able to come back even after that spin, which we thought would have taken him out of contention completely, now and finds himself not only on a podium but second place, pulling away from Matthew Dyer. Comeback story of the century, let me tell you.
Yeah, looking like to be our driver of the race. Is another car having issues in sector 2. As we're going through, it's going to be Tanner Johnson in the off machine. Ooh. I think that might have been JD or one of the other Ferraris that has been screaming through and almost made contact.
That was Tanner Jump. Not Tanner Jump, Trenton Jump, my bad. He pulled right back, Tanner pulled right back on the track as Trenton was coming through and almost timed it wrong, and that could have been disastrous.
And both those machines able to continue moving, but it could have been a much scarier situation for both drivers. As the laps are ticking away, 5 laps to go for these drivers. And we kind of know who's going to win this thing as we're coming to the end of this thing. Tires are starting to fall off and they're struggling to find pace, or just find grip, I should say, as they continue to run all over the place. But moving forward to next week, it's going to be an even longer race for these drivers, a lot more mentally and physically draining race course. We're going to Monaco.
The only track on the circuit that has one DRS zone. It's a legacy race. They've been racing there almost since the beginning of Formula One itself. It's an iconic track, but these cars are so fast. Passing is going to be so hard. I dare say that we're getting to the point where these cars are almost too fast for Monaco. But again, it's one of the crown jewels of motorsport, the Monaco Grand Prix, and you know, you got to have it. And I'm excited for next week. It's going to be chaotic. We've seen so many problems here. What happens when we put them on the tightest circuit of the track? We have
issues for drivers back in sector 1. That's actually going to be Spencer Hardison and the Renault machine. I think that's who it was. No,
Frozen.
No, Frozen.
Frozen spun going out of turn 3, and that's something new. We haven't seen anyone spin out of turn 3 before.
Well, turn 3, another one of those spots where your car can get pretty light. But again, losing positions, losing time, since a lot of cars in the back that are having issues here. And surprising to see so many issues at the end, but I think I'm mostly surprised because drivers that are on softs, that time that was Frozen. Usually you'd think the cars that are on the much older mediums or softs would be having issues so far. As the gap before Bronson came to the pits was around 55, almost a full minute on second place after pitting, being on these softs and pulling away from the older mediums. It is back to 50 seconds.
Yeah, he's definitely on the faster compound tire and just running down some hot laps. He's about to catch Brakey to lap him, and that would only put 3 cars on the lead lap. That's something crazy when you consider that there's only 8 cars running, and that's just as big as the gap is. We're coming down to 2 laps to go when he crosses. JD has gotten himself in a nice position. Our second place driver, again, the comeback story of the season, started towards the back, was as low as last place, now finds himself in second place. That car has been on a tear. Matthew Dyer, 2 instances he was our pole sitter. Started this race with high hopes, was actually in a battle with Bronson Stafford and keeping up with him. Now finds himself on a podium, but in the 3rd place position. And the other Ferrari, Brakey, finds himself in the 4th position, trying to jump in 5th. Frozen, Spencer, and Tanner makes up the rest of the field. 2 laps to go.
I mean, if you love conspiracy theories, I can always say that Dyer is just, deciding that he doesn't want to come into the interview box and have me interview him for this race. But that's just conspiracy that's being thrown around.
Yeah, it's just a little tip of the mouth, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I love my brother. He's doing a great job. I'm being biased that I want him to do well out here, and with those 2 spins not helping his case out here, but you know that he's got the pace to do it. It's more of, like we've been saying, and I know we're going to beat a dead horse at this point, it's that consistency for a full-length race that you have to show if you want to be up front, and that's why we see Bronson Stafford out there.
The old adage is you can not win a race in the first turn, but you can definitely lose one in the first turn. And you know, Bronson didn't have the best qualifying runs. Actually, out middle of the pack and fourth, and you know, just made his way through the field. And I'm just stuck there. And he's coming through our chicane section. He just died. Oh, that was just one of the. Okay, I get it. It was one of the Haas's was going slow, and it's actually retired.
Yeah. Tanner Johnson is done.
Interesting.
So this computer is going to be running around. It's going to show that we have sectors having a yellow here at the end of the race. As we are on the white flag, Bronson Stafford, he's been dominant all season long in Sector 1. He just has to get by one more lap machine in front of him. And I believe that is Brakey. He's already lapped up to 5th place. Only 4 cars left ongoing, and as again, that yellow for Sector 1. Believe that was actually no one, and take that back. I think that actually was a machine. Trenton Jump, having issues there as Tanner Johnson's car is out of here.
It was turn 3 again where Trenton kind of spun off, and it looks like the Brakey or Bronson's going to get DRS off of Brakey. What a run for the AlphaTauri team. 4 Grand Prix, looks like it's going to be 4 wins for them with Bronson Stafford, a dominating performance.
Yeah, it's been fantastic for this AlphaTauri team, and you know, once we see Hazardous back, it's going to help points-wise again for these drivers. And coming around the last corner here, it is all Bronson Stafford of AlphaTauri, 4 for 4 for the machine. That really is put on a show and a clinic on the rest of the field, almost lapping every single car out here. But the gap between first and second was massive, and I cannot believe that Bronson Stafford has done it again in this type of fashion, with having new drivers coming in, with Matthew Dyer, JD having his instances. I think everyone from second on back had a problem at one point.
Yeah, it was every one of these 8 drivers except for Bronson had something happen, and to show you how big of a gap he had, second place hasn't even gotten to the chicane yet. He is just now getting in. Yeah,
they're just coming in now, and there's still the possibility of having a penalty come in here. You got to make sure you roll clean here at the end of this race. As crossing the line, that's going to be frozen as well. As
What?
Okay, I think there might be a glitch that's going on, because when this race started, JD was glitching out slightly where it said that he wasn't here when he actually was. So unofficially, Bronson Stafford won this race, even though on our telemetry it says JD won it. But that is odd to see.
Yeah, Bronson Stafford won this race. I think.
Yeah, in a dominating fashion, he did it. It's just that was odd to see as JD gets driver of the day. Not surprised. Started in the back of the field, moved up to second place. But yeah, our graphics are going to look odd. But JD actually finished second, did not get the win here today. And that actually will be going to the AlphaTauri team of Bronson Stafford, who is 4 for 4 this season. New blood, Matthew Dyer, able to get 3rd place here today after his multiple spin day. But an odd way for this race to go down.
That was, that's not exactly what I was expecting at the end of the race, but no. Rest assured. Okay, that best lap also definitely not legit.
That is very glitched. That was glitched on the first lap. Best lap actually does go to Bronson Stafford, who maxes out his points. Bronson Stafford officially did win this race. Just a glitch in the game that happened that put JD up to the lead when he did finish second. So, you know, just a little bit of a mess up here, but they will be submitted on the submitted in the point standings as we move forward. But man, a wild race for these drivers as we are coming to the end here. What a great run for all these drivers out here as we're getting set up for our wrap up here, where we will be interviewing these drivers. But Anthony, from your end, what were some of your biggest takeaways from this race?
You gotta stop the car from spinning. That's about the biggest takeaway that we could see in this race. You gotta keep the car pointed forward. That was the biggest factor with the outcome of this race and how the final running order was put up. And again, don't think you're out of the race just because you have an incident. If you do spin, as we saw JD go from last to second in the entire run of the race, lap 1 to lap 66. So don't ever think that your race is over just because of a spin. Keep it pointed forward. You've got a chance.
Yeah, we will. You always got pushing forward, even if you have early troubles. And speaking of troubles, we're going to be bringing in Matt Dyer into the booth, finishing 3rd place here today. And Matt, it's Sam and Anthony up in the booth. You got us?
Yeah, I got you.
Well, you looked quick. You got the pole. You had the fastest car at the start of the run, but then some issues popped up. What happened with some of those spins?
My spin during the first pit stop, I bumped up the front wing to try to get a little bit more front grip, but I maybe went a little bit too far and lost it in that chicane. And then towards the end there, something happened with my gas pedal, and I had no gas pedal at all, so I had to let the AI finish it out, and I ended up losing 2nd place.
You hate to see that type of situation happen for you. I know that this was a one-off now, but how excited were you to finally be right? And what can we expect once you come back for full-time racing?
I think you'll see me on the podium, pretty much every week. It felt pretty good. I thought, the race went well. I really wanted to really compete with Bronson there at the end, but unfortunately, my luck continues.
Yeah, unfortunately, it carries over from iRacing to here. Anthony, do you have any thoughts here from?
Your first outing with that I've seen you in this race, like you said, we did good, and you touched on the future. How was your car feeling today? Like, it seemed like you had a great run. We were expecting you to be at the front. Did your car feel like it was kind of twitchy because it looked like at the middle stages of the run it kind of seemed a little unhappy?
Yeah, of course, during the first pit stop, I did increase the front wing to try to get the front grip. Of course, it made it a little bit more oversteery. But it felt really good. I initially wanted to start on the mediums, but I clicked the wrong button and went on the softs. But I think overall it felt pretty good.
Well, Matt, before we let you go, we're going to give you the space for shout-outs to do.
This is a huge shout out to Breaky for letting me come and do this one-off race, and hopefully they can continue to be successful.
And we hope that as well. That's Matthew Dyer in the Renault team getting a podium here today, finishing 3rd. Thank you for coming into the booth, Matt. Have a great rest of your night. And now we're going to be bringing in officially 2nd place is going to be JD. But you saw there it glitched out for a second. But bringing into the booth, we've got Justin here. JD, you got 2nd there. I know it glitched out for a second, but it's Sam and Anthony up in the booth.
Hey guys, yeah, that was a crazy start to the race for me. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, from your point of view, with that first spin that you had, what happened there for you?
Yeah, so I lost connection, and I rejoined just around as the car turned in for turn 1. So I was a little frazzled, trying to get back under the rhythm because you got to be focused and try to keep your head down. But when you break focus like that, it's hard to really snap back and try to put down a lap. So I got to turn 4 and I just put a wheel off and the car just went around.
Yeah, I mean, I know that wasn't the way you wanted your race to go, but you still came back with a 2nd place finish. I mean, that shows a lot of part battling forward to be getting that position.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the hard tire was actually really, really good. Far better than I expected it to be. And even when my teammates swapped onto the mediums, probably I want to say 10 or 15 laps after I went to the hard compound, I was still pulling in on him and closed the gap, passed him on the track. Didn't need the pit cycle to get around him, and yeah, I think in a way I think that strategy worked out because the softs were just they're not good for the opening stint of the race.
We saw where the soft tire didn't really seem to be the tire of choice. We actually saw a lot of drivers use the hard tire today, which the first time of the season we've seen that where a lot of drivers were opting for that. How did the track feel? We saw that there was, a lot of instances that happened today, and almost every single one that was on the track had some form of off-track or spin moment. What was the track particularly slick today? Do you think maybe the overcast weather made it more slick? And how was the tire temps throughout the race?
I was kind of by myself for a while, and I saw the yellow flags come up on the display, but I never really asked for what happened, or I didn't really listen either. The track itself wasn't really that slick in my opinion. I mean, the car was on a rail pretty much from when I came in to put on the hards until the very end. Even with 2 to go, I was turning pretty good sector times compared to where I'd started each stint. So, I think the track was fine. It didn't build rubber like we might expect. You didn't really see the dark strip of rubber start forming on the racetrack, but it really wasn't that slick. I was able to get the power down pretty early in a lot of spots. So it's just mistakes. It's really easy to run off, as I proved. You just put one wheel off, and that's really all it takes around here.
Yeah, I mean, JD, it was wild and a great comeback on your part. Next week we go to Monaco. How are you feeling about going there, and how tight it's gonna be?
Oh, I don't know. It's my first league on a wheel, and I'm used to Monaco on a gamepad, but this will probably present a new challenge for me. But I like to think that I've been pretty good on street circuits in the past. So I'm kind of excited. I'm kind of excited to see how Monaco plays out.
Well, JD, before we let you go, we're going to offer up the floor for you for any shout-outs.
I just want to thank you and Anthony for putting on a good show. As usual, shout out to my good buddy Christian, helping me out. And shout out to Logan for, I think that we had a fun battle there at the midpoint of the race.
Well, that's JD getting a second place finish here for Ferrari. And we'll see once the points go through if constructors are in your grasp or if we're still points away. We'll talk to you hopefully next week. Have a great rest of your night there, JD.
All right, see you guys. Thanks.
And it's going to be a blast for these drivers next week. But before we get there, we need to talk to the driver that has won every single race here. So, Bronson, it's Sam and Anthony up in the booth. You got us?
Yeah, I do.
Well, that's race number 4 of the season and win number 4. How you feeling after that?
Pretty good. 4 for 4. I mean, I don't think you can get much better of a start of a season than that. So, I'm kind of glad to get that because Monaco's next. Not looking forward to that.
Yeah, I mean, for this race so far, before we think about Monaco, it was looking close. You saw some new drivers in here with Matthew Dyer joining the mix for a one-off. How are you feeling after qualifying? I know mediums was kind of strategy some drivers were thinking, but you were the one that actually did it and made it work.
Yeah, I know the repave of Spain. It helped the tire wear, but I was still just so set on starting on mediums just with full fuel load and hopefully not burning them up. And after qualifying, only being about 2.5 tenths off on a tire that's about 7 tenths slower, I felt pretty good. I figured just kind of let the tires come in and don't push too hard and just let the race come to me, and it did. And unfortunately, JD and Matt had some issues, but it was a good race.
Consistency seems to be the key for this entire season. We've seen you be consistent. We mentioned it during the broadcast where other drivers have problems throughout the entire season, back even in Australia, Bahrain, and in Zandvoort. When other drivers have problems, you seem to be the only one that's been able to stay consistent. Do you think maybe that's going to be the thing that wins you the championship, is while everyone else around you is having issues, you're able to stay that way and continue to pull massive leads like we saw today?
I think right now for sure. I think after 3 straight wins, I think everyone's kind of on a back foot and maybe pushing a little bit harder to close the gap. And I don't have to change anything. I don't have to try and make up a gap or make up time, so I can just kind of not full throttle off a corner where I know the car can be a little sketchy and stuff like that. Well, they're probably trying to make up time and might be just making a little bit more mistakes. Like JD said, he clipped the grass out of turn 4 or 5 and it sent him around. And like all night long, I was making sure to stay away from exit curbs or like grass areas and try not to get too hard on the gas and put myself in trouble.
Yeah, and Bronson, you touched about Monaco next week. How going to that narrow racetrack that is so infamous for taking out the machine?
Yeah, Monaco, I don't know. Monaco's very important for qualifying, and I think that'll be the race where I actually throw on the softest tire and go for it. Just because starting first can be such an advantage. It's so hard to pass, and obviously it's easier to not knock the wing off when you can kind of control the pace and keep people behind you and whatnot. So Monaco should be interesting. Typically the races there are always kind of crazy, so who knows? It might just be, honestly, whoever breaks the wing their least is going to win.
Yeah, it's going to be wild. I mean, even if you have a bad day next week, your points lead is already so massive. You can miss a race. But Bronson, before we let you go, we're going to offer up the floor for any shout-outs.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely you guys, Anthony and Sam, FRN, you guys do great. I always watch them back, and it's always fun to see, and you catch the battles and whatnot, so it's really fun. And obviously Breaky and all them guys throwing this on. It's always a lot of fun every week and having somewhere to race.
Well, that's Bronson Stafford, a part of the AlphaTauri team, and getting it 4 for 4 this season. We'll see if he can continue that forward. As Anthony, I mean, it seems like it's a different race, same show in a way, but I mean, those battles between everyone else seems pretty interesting to watch.
Yeah, everyone else in about the mid-pack, even towards the front of the field, we see that their consistency and their drive is about the same. And these cars are so much, the way that they run them, they're so equal to each other that it really does come down to driver skill. And we saw a lot of great battles, a lot of 2 and 3, even 4-way battles today. And when we get to Monaco, though, those battles are going to be more about who can get the best qualifying run and then who can survive the racetrack. It's the tightest circuit we go to the entire season. It's the most amount of laps we have the entire season. It's going to be a battle of attrition, not with necessarily other drivers, but a battle with the racetrack. And we're going to see who is really the master of the Monaco Grand Prix.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've raced previously in older Slipstream races on the older one games. Monaco has always been a disastrous race for the drivers because it's such a wild card with how narrow and fast you run around there. There's always the chance of you wrecking out and taking your car out just so early in a run. So it's going to be a lot of cars trying to keep patience and making sure they don't make any mistakes. But I mean, Anthony, it was a blast having you in the booth here with me tonight. And like always, thank you for being up here every Monday night.
Formula One is probably one of the things that I always go back to whenever I want something to have a bit of a stress relief. And I'm so glad that FRN has made it possible for me to commentate with you. And every week something else happens, and I'm excited for next week. I can't wait to get to Monaco.
Next week is Monaco for round number 5 of the Slipstream Formula One Championship, and those drivers are going to be excited and nervous at the same time. My name is Sam. I've got Anthony with me here today, and thank you again for watching another presentation of the Flatout Racing Network. As more action will continue forward, as tomorrow is going to be the 87 Vintage Series. That's going to be where Seth and I are going to be broadcasting that, and that is going to be at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on the Flatout Racing Network's YouTube page. Those guys have been racing hard and aggressive, and they're inching closer and closer to the end of the season. You don't want to miss that. But for tonight, Thank you for watching this F1 action, and we cannot wait to see more of it next week. Have a great rest of your night, and good night, everybody.
Oh.